The Meeples and Miniatures podcast is sponsored by Two Fat Lardies, Firestorm Games, and the generous donations of you, the listener. Thank you to everybody for your very generous continued support. Meeples and Miniatures, episode 278. PSC Games, Snog, Marry, Avoid. With your host Neil Shuck and guest Dave Hickman. This show was recorded on the 12th of October, 2019. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Meeples and Miniatures podcast. Tis I, the Brummy Dwarf, and a slightly different show because, as you may hear, we have different acoustics. It must mean that we're on a road trip. So I have come up out of the bunker, squinty-eyed into the bright sunlight, and have taken my life in my hands crossing town. Which, if you drive in Leicester, you'll know that is not an exaggeration. And we are at Meeples Gaming Central. None other than we are in the gaming tower of none other than, well, it is the anti-luff himself. It is the Halfling Hickman. Hello, sir. How are you?
And a good morning, Neil. Lovely to be here, I think.
Yeah. Admittedly, it's not quite as early as Mr. Hughes made it up the other week, but it is an unseeming hour on a Saturday morning. So here we are. We're in we are in the gaming room of the Halfling Hickman. Although obviously Mr. Hickman is acting as, I think the best thing to say, an injury substitute.
Yes, we appear to be slightly down a Welshman at the moment.
Indeed, the Welsh Wizard, or should I say, the Grand Welsh Wizard, because according to some of his latest correspondence that he has shared on Twitter, he looks like he's got a promotion. Unfortunately, Michael is not very well. You may have picked up, if you follow him, that he's been ill, and so he's taken a bit of time off, rest and recuperate. So we wish him all the very best. And this was originally going to be back to the good old days, or should I say bad old days, of a solo show. And then with what we were doing, and the fact that due to a game life balance problem by one of our gaming group, i.e. he decided he'd rather work than game. Crazy man. We ended up playing the third in a series of games that we're going to be reviewing. And so because he's actually managed to play all three games, David, you have drawn the short straw.
So it seems.
So here we are, and we're right. So we're going to be. So I have somewhat tongue-in-cheekily named this show PSC Games, Snog, Marry, Avoid. Now, I'll point out before we go any further that I have never seen the aforementioned reality TV program, so I have actually no idea what the format is. But it just seemed like, I don't know, it just seemed appropriate. And as we go into the, you're looking at me with that. Don't stop looking at me with that tone of voice. But
I'm sorry, there's a TV program
called reality TV program called Snog, Marry, Avoid.
For somebody who doesn't watch TV.
Yes, I know. Anyway, by the by. However,
how did you know about it then?
Advertising, you know.
So you have watched it then?
No, not at all. I've just But it was in the days when BBC Three actually was on terrestrial, was on television as opposed to just an iPlayer. But so I know of its existence. Okay, and we'll just step away and leave it at that.
It's tempting not to, but I think I will for evidence.
Thank you. So, it kind of fits in with what we think of the games, and since Dave has actually played all three along with myself, I invited him along to share his thoughts, and it means that I'm just not chatting to myself for the show. So there we have it. So welcome, David, and it does also mean that rather than just leaping into a small review show, we will be doing some confessions and we will be doing a little bit of hobbying, because funnily enough, we need to applaud Mr. Hickman for actually doing some hobbying. More of which later. We'll take a quick break, and when we come back, it is time for our confessions.
The Meeples and Miniatures podcast is proud to be sponsored by Two Fat Lardies, purveyors of the finest rules, supplements and gaming accessories for all your wargaming needs. Most recent in their offerings include the September War Anniversary Bundle, marking 80 years since the start of World War II. This is a 2-scenario book set for I Ain't Been Shotman. In accompaniment to that, you have a free PDF download of Blitzkrieg in the East Part 1 Poland, which contains a number of army lists for I Ain't Been Shotman. This is a free PDF download. And a special offer on the Kriegspiel Compendium, rules, scenarios and a map for this classic wargame. Don't forget that you can get more Two Fat Lardies by viewing Lard TV on YouTube. The latest episodes include parts 3 and 4 of Taking the Gemblow Gap, a playthrough of General Darnay, Rich Clark finishing his build of the Blacksmith, and Sydney's Battlefield Challenge. Also, don't forget that for your listening pleasure, you can also download The Oddcast. It's available on Lord TV, but also via your podcast app of choice. Two Fat Lardies. Play the period, not the rules.
Dearly beloved, here we are gathered amidst an orgy of gaming. It has to be said, Mr. Hickman. I mean, I was thinking, you know how Pratchett describes libraries and bookstores as having owl space.
Owl space, yes.
Due to the fact of the amount of books starts bending the space-time continuum. I'm just wondering if the same can be said for games, lead and plastic, and we are in danger of falling into G space. Or if nothing else, it appears that you're taking out shares in IKEA with the amount of Calyx that I see around the room.
Possibly.
Yes. As with most gamers, myself included, it appears that we all appear to, other than spending our money on games and metal and plastic, we also invest in IKEA Kallax shelving and really useful boxes. And here is no exception. It's an Aladdin's cave. It's an Aladdin's cave, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great place to be. So, I always feel dirty holding confessions here. It's like, but we do have a couple of things to confess. I've been relatively good. Don't know about you, Dave. Although, I think I have to hold my hand up to at least one of your issues.
I could say I have been led astray by a couple of people.
Couldn't possibly comment. All right. Okay, so
I can't remember what the name of the damn things are, but I'm gonna...
Right. I've only done a couple of things this month. So, first off are now Heresy Miniatures, who are a wonderful little one-man band deep in the heart of Derbyshire. Andy's currently having, as he describes it, a pre-Brexit sale. So I took advantage of which, not to make a major purchase, but some. I mean, he has lots of wonderful little quirky, well, not just quirky stuff, but lots of little bits and pieces. Including he has the old Spyglass range of female adventurers, which is really nice. And so, for those players of Rangers of Shadow Deep, you'll know that there are a number of different types of ghoul in the game. And so, in order to represent the different types of ghoul, it's probably worth looking at different ghoul manufacturers to have like the different, because there are different styles of ghouls. And so, I ended up purchasing a couple of packs of the aforementioned ghouls from Heresy Miniatures because they are lovely. The only other thing I've done is, well, other than buying a bit of paint, a few more contrast paints from Battlefield Hobbies that, again, taking advantage of their We Are Moving sale, which, as we record this, is just about to finish because they're moving on Monday. They're starting to move on Monday. However, the other thing I backed is a small Kickstarter called Realm of the Dragon number 3. Realm of the Dragon number 3 by Richard Novis. This is a small Kickstarter which is finishing on the 3rd of November. This company, it's a small company based in Bournemouth, and it is for a range of 28mm miniatures, and it's a pack of 5. They're called the Night Hunters, and essentially they're a pack of 5 female witchfinders. Well, there are 3 kind of main witchfinders. There's an apprentice, and then there's a rogue. So it's a nice little pack. It's available in resin. Well, kind of like a plastic resin sort. Yeah. Well, put it this way, they've got two pleasure levels. One is for a kind of resin plastic mix, and then the other set is is kind of a high quality resin, I believe. They've only got a couple of packs of that left. That's kind of all I've done this month. Got a couple of shinies to talk about in a bit, but yeah, that's actually, I've been quite restrained. So that's me.
That's very good of you. I mean,
so not too bad at all. Hang on. I can't remember if I talked about the. I can't remember if I talked about the extra miniatures for the Return to Hoth expansion last month. I think I did, but just So move along. Okay, how about you, sir? What have you been up to?
Well, what's the Manuel? I think the last thing you mentioned about me was a bit of dungeon scenery I picked up from Martin at.
Oh yeah, your exploits at the Chilcon Derby.
Yes.
Yes.
Since then, 2 kind, helpful people have poked me and pointed me at Kickstarters.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Hobbs.
We just think of it as a service, Dave.
So I ended up backing Time of Legends Destinies, which is a Joan of Arc game compatible with Time of Legends Joan of Arc.
Okay.
From what I can make out of it, because it was it caught me.
Yeah.
It's an exploration game.
Oh, okay.
With your lay tiles, you've got characters. Your characters are compatible with Joan of Arc.
Oh, okay. Oh,
so to add to my minor mountain sitting on top of that cupboard over there,
which I'm quite scared because I'm sat almost under it. I'm just scared that at some point whether it might fall off and crush me.
So I ended up backing that, and then somebody sitting opposite me sort of went, "Ooh, look at this."
It is a bit worrying when you see Renaissance halflings sat on chickens and you think of somebody.
And needless to say, I have backed it to add to my world-conquering Hobbit army.
Yeah, you have a couple of collections of Hobbits, haven't you?
I think at the moment I'm at about the 300 to 400 mark.
Right.
When I get to painting them, sometime before I die, preferably.
Yeah.
I have a lot of halflings.
Yeah, because I must admit, I didn't... Because you backed was it the TT Combat?
I backed the TT Combat, but I went all in, so I had every single one of them.
Right, but you'd also previously backed the halfling...
Half-necks.
The half-necks Kickstarter, which is...
Which are halfling necks.
Yeah.
And might have been 2 small armies of those as well. And,
right.
And then there's all my Midland.
Oh, I forgot about the Midland stuff.
Which every time he's done a Kickstarter for halflings, I've bought those because they're very, very good.
Right, okay.
Obviously I've got my 15 or so halfling wizards that I started with.
Yeah. So, suffice it to say, you have the odd 1 or 2 halfling figures.
I like halflings.
Cool. Yes, although it has to be said, I mean, especially considering, we call you the halfling Hickman, but obviously, given your stature, you're obviously from the Tuck side of the family.
I think I might have eaten a few.
Excellent. And anything else?
I bought a bit of paint. Mind you, that was a bit of a roll-on from a minor accident I had with some washers.
Oh, yes. Dave is the only person that I know who manages to get a day off work because he's doused himself in GW wash.
I wouldn't mind, but it was 2 different pots of it.
Hang on, so you did 2?
I did. I did the classic, let's be clumsy and knock over the Agrax Earthshade.
Yes.
So I spent 5 minutes mopping that up.
Yes.
And then I opened up the Nuln Oil to do something and knocked that thing over.
What, immediately?
Yeah. Which is why I tweeted at the time to stop.
Okay, so...
And I may have bought a few contrast paints while I was at it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so don't do that with contrast paints. It gets even more expensive, mate.
That's why I've also bought some dropper bottles.
Okay. Oh, dear.
So,
yeah. Most people tweet that they've had a disaster with 1 pot of Games Workshop wash. No, that's not good enough for David. Nice dropper bottles, though, has to be said.
Yes, they are very.
Yes. Oh, dear me. Right. Okay, so that's what you bought. Anything kind of on your radar at the moment?
I think some Kickstarter stuff incoming soon, possibly.
Yeah, I mean, have you seen it? Have you seen anything that or any minis, any Kickstarters or anything that you kind of fancy, that you kind of think you're up for?
I try not to look, to be fair.
Oh, it's at that point where yes.
I've actually not looked at. I don't look at Kickstarter anymore because it's getting a bit expensive on the old Kickstarter front, as I have this habit of buying everything.
Yeah, you do have that. You do have that kind of slight tendency to kind of go, okay, I'm going to get this all in. You know, it's like it's like Texas Hold'em. It's like whoosh, everything in the table.
On the horizon, I'm looking forward to Oathsworn's Kickstarter.
Oh, Outtro Miniatures Kickstarter.
Yeah.
Yes, not to be confused by something else I'm going to talk about in a second. Yes.
Okay, but yes, I'm looking forward to the next Kickstarter for Badgers and Burrows Miniatures. So I shall almost certainly be backing that when it comes out.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, we had a really good chat with Mike and Joe at Derby, didn't we?
Yes, indeed.
I think we must have monopolised them for the first half hour about various things, but yeah, they have got a Kickstarter coming out. It's due out at the end of this month, basically because of everything else that's around. And of course, yeah. There's some very nice sculpts in that.
Hey, Michael's a brilliant sculptor. I just love his work.
Yeah, agreed. Anything else?
Not that I can think of at the moment. Something may pop into my head later, but it may not, because I am a bit empty at the moment.
Right. Got several things. I have been having a little bit of a browse around Kickstarter and trying to avoid stuff. However, I mean, funny enough, with Oathsworn coming up, and I did actually flag this to Michael and Joe, saying, have you seen this? Can they do this? There's a game by Shadowborn Games.
Oh, that, yes.
That has just launched on Kickstarter, launched a couple of days ago, called Oathsworn Into the Deepwood.
Ugh.
A dark fantasy board game with brand new mechanics and giant monsters.
Who'd have thought that?
Who'd have thought that? Yes. I mean, it's got 24 days to go. Again, it seems to be one of these, basically, it's... I hate to say Gloomhaven clone, but
yeah,
you kind of get the impression. It looks interesting. I mean, certainly in the case of what they've done is they have done 2 pledge levels. One is like you can have the game and have everything as standees, but then you've got a second pledge level where you get miniatures, so you can get all the standees as actual miniatures instead. Fancy that, Dave?
That would have been nice for Gloomhaven, but it would have put it way out of price range. And I'd have needed another house just to store the game.
It does have to be said that core pledge, it does... now, admittedly, they're saying they're extra large monsters. I think basically they're doing it in something like 40mm scale.
Why?
It does strike me as just making it bigger because you can. I mean, it would have been nice if they'd have just kept it at 30mm. But yeah, the Warden miniature. Well, these are the player miniatures. You get there are 6 characters, and they're saying they're 45mm scale. They look very well. I mean, I'm assuming these are renders. They look very nice.
That seems a little large for player characters to me.
45mm?
Why would? But that means then you're going to have ridiculously large monsters.
Right. So they have now the core pledge. This core pledge they've got for the which includes what they call the monster chest or the mystery chest. So it's 53 extra large models. 5 120mm plus models, and then all the rest of the bunch. It's got a fully narrated companion app in the game, as standard, as an adventure game. Which now a fully narrated one sounds quite interesting.
I'm not certain.
No, it looks interesting, but And I thought, well, if you back it, you back it with the minis. It's 100. It's
Why
100.
would I need that? I've got 2 cubbies full of Dark Souls bosses that are massive.
True.
I don't need more giant. I've got a huge dragon sitting up on the shelf there that needs to be assembled and painted some year.
Good grief! Here we have the anti-love talking frugality. Good grief!
No, I'm not sold by that particular game.
Yeah, $179. That's a bit. Which is what
About 140 quid at the moment.
140 quid.
Plus the same again for shipping by the time it comes to ship.
Because it's no longer going to be EU friendly.
Yes.
Unless they have a UK base for shipping, which, according to their campaign, I don't think they do.
Even if they did it now by basic US mail, I've just had I've got a small thing coming in from my other hobby of electronics coming from the States, which has cost me $15 to send a small circuit board and some components.
Wow.
Which is US International Post.
Well, they got a nice scenery pack. You got an add-on terrain box. This is hot. Oh no! Wow. I wish I hadn't looked at this.
You don't need add-on terrain. If you need scatter terrain, you know where to go. I pointed you in the correct direction the other week.
Yeah, it's now the wrong scale though, isn't it? Because they're doing 45. Well,
because they're doing a large scale, it's no good to you anyway. Why am I sitting here talking you out of something?
Talking me out of something.
I should be talking you into this for revenge.
Okay, yes. It's interesting. They're turning around and saying it's EU shipping friendly, including the UK. Ships around December 2020. I really don't think that they can... hang on. Additionally, the case of the United Kingdom leaving the EU, there will be no added customs charges to the shipments to the UK. I'm not quite sure how they can guarantee that.
They can't guarantee anything. I know our customs people that they've even charged me duty on a book that shouldn't have been charged on.
Yeah. The all-in pledge weighs £35. It's a...
it's American, isn't it?
It's American, yeah. Yeah, so 17 kilo.
17 kilo.
Yeah, that's a big box. I'm just looking at it at the moment, kind of going, that's interesting, and especially since
it's interesting. Well, I tell you what, you can back it then.
I'll back that one,
and I can play it
because you're the one that's backed all the others. Yes, okay. I'm kind of looking at that one moment, going, ooh, that's interesting. But when does it finish? It finishes on the 5th of November. If only it finished a bit later.
We mean about the 24th.
Yes. I'm not quite sure. I'm not quite sure whether I can manage that or not. We'll have to wait. We'll have to wait and see, and see if I'm going to. Anyway, that's my shiny. I'm looking. I wasn't going to look at it.
You've looked at it now.
And then I looked at it, and I'm going to go.
Shall I just pick the laptop up and point it in your direction with a bigger picture so you can stare at it for the rest of the...
Look, the fact that it's on my phone, there's this big green thing going, back this project. So trying desperately not to...
Now, here we're missing Mike, who would have probably just clicked on the...
Indeed. So there we are. So that's our confessions for this show. So we'll take a quick break, and when we come back, it's time to chat a little bit about hobbying.
Hi everyone, Neil here. I hope you enjoy this episode of the Meeples and Miniatures podcast. If you are, I'm wondering, would you consider becoming a patron of the show? For as little as $1 a month, you can help support us in what we're doing with the show. For that, you can get access to a monthly question and answer show. That will also allow you to ask questions. If you pledge more, you potentially get bonus podcasts. And you never know, you might even get invited to be on the show yourself. If you want to know more details, please follow the link to our Patreon page, which is on the front of the website. That's www.meeplesandminiatures.co.uk. Thanks a lot.
Okay, so we're into the hobby section of the podcast, and well, we actually have hobby to talk. In fact, I'm surrounded by hobby at this point in time.
I may have found myself again for a little while.
Excellent stuff. I mean, basically, since the last time we spoke, all I've done is I have based and decoded some miniatures. All the new Rangers of Shadow Deep stuff that North Star and Tag have done. That I've done a lot of miniatures for, and we actually even got as far as deciding what characters we were going to do. And
are we actually going to play that game at some stage?
It would be nice.
Because I'm actually seriously looking forward to playing that.
Yeah, it would be nice. We just haven't quite got around to it yet. We keep getting distracted by trying to finish Gloomhaven, I think.
Well, when the odd time we manage to play it nowadays.
Yeah.
When we can herd 4 people into the same room at the same time.
Which appears to be becoming increasingly difficult, doesn't it?
Yeah, for me. I mean, is that all you've done then?
Because gaming-wise, we're going to talk about a lot of that. I mean, the only other thing I've been doing is myself and Josh have been busy getting our arse kicked well and truly in Journeys in Middle-earth. We played a couple of sessions of Journeys in Middle-earth.
Okay, cool.
Which generally has been good. However, we were somewhat disappointed by one of the scenarios. Okay, spoiler alert. A little bit of a spoiler alert.
Not too much, because I haven't played them all yet.
Yeah, I know. Right. But, the first 4 scenarios, I believe, are kind of like linear. Okay? So, in the 3rd scenario, you come across a ranger who you have to, who's been injured and you have to help her. Right. She then gives you some information, which basically leads into the next scenario, which is it's another skirmish scenario, right? And you have to visit a tavern and find out the identity of a spy. Now, having played some of the mystery scenarios from Mansions,
yeah,
and the way that those scenarios work, we kind of know that, we would expect that things get changed around a bit, yeah? That at least it'd be a case of either clues get changed or people get changed or something. And we turned up and everything appeared to be exactly the same. To the point where, as it turned out, and you'll go, hang on, if it was the same, how come you got it wrong a second time? Because we convinced ourselves it was different. And also because we'd, this time round, had failed a couple of ability checks that we had passed last time. We had less information and we kind of convinced ourselves that it must be this character who is the spy. And you get to that point where I accuse you, and then
you're wrong.
All crap happens when you're
twice,
wrong. And we've done it twice.
But it was the same.
Okay, so we've currently gone as far as accusing. You have 3 suspects. We have accused 2 different suspects and got it wrong on both occasions.
You'll not know now then until the 3rd playthrough.
And it's almost worth a 3rd time round going through and just walking up to the 3rd guy and go, "Oi, it's you," without doing anything else. and see what happens.
Yes, that would
But
be interesting.
But the simple fact that I mean, okay, it might just be the fact that it's only the second time through, and it's just happened to be the same from a random thing. But I was a little bit disappointed that on a second playthrough, everything seemed very, very similar for what is a mystery-solving scenario.
But its strength isn't particularly mystery-solving, though, is it?
No, it's an exploration game, isn't it?
It's an exploration game with a little bit of combat, because you don't really want to do the combat too much before you die.
Funny you should say that. Yes, because in the following scenario, Josh was playing Bilbo, and he died in 2 turns.
I've killed Bilbo in the first combat.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he died. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't pretty. So that's all. Yeah, that's Hollywood. That's all we've done. We've done a bit of playing, and then obviously we played a couple of other games, which we're going to talk about in a bit. So how about you? What have you been up to?
Well, obviously I got back from Chilcom with my several kilos of MDF.
Yeah.
Which I then assembled.
Ooh.
I then did something very unusual for me.
Yeah.
I fished down my airbrush, got my paints out, and painted it all.
Wow.
It took me a week.
Yeah.
But it's all painted. The accident with the washers was while I was finishing up the doors.
Okay. So what paint did you use?
I used Minotaur.
Hang on, what? I'm sorry?
I used the airbrush paints I have.
Right, so you use high quality airbrush paints on some MDF walls.
Nobody told me I was intelligent. I have the paints in. It's cost me a couple of quid to paint it. I'm not worried.
Fair enough. Okay.
I know you think I should have gone out and spent a £5 on a spray can that would have actually ended up costing me more.
No, I didn't say that at all. I didn't say that at all. What I said is that you should have gone out and bought spent a couple of quid in Wilco's, bought a couple of emulsion match pots, watered them down, and used emulsion as opposed to your high quality, lovely Minotaur airbrush paints.
Well, I've got to use them somewhere.
Yeah, fair enough.
No, I mean, they were in. I was in the mood to start.
Yeah.
So I just did it.
Because the problem with MDF, it's a little bit thirsty, isn't it?
You can watch it slurping the paint up.
Yes.
But what it does do is because there's a dark and then a lighter grey on.
Yeah.
It sort of gives quite a nice finish.
Yeah, and of course, because you've airbrushed it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So wow, got the airbrush out.
So that is basically a 9 litre.
The aforementioned really useful box. Yes.
The 9 litre really useful box full.
Excellent. So you've actually bought it, assembled it, and painted it before I have. I mean, I've assembled mine, but that's about.
Yes, I did notice you were playing with unpainted scenery, mate.
Desperate, wasn't it?
And then, the other thing that's just sprung to mind that I bought that I've forgotten to mention was I paid a little visit to Blott's web store, and
oh, right, yeah.
Because I happen to have some models to build of sort of 20mm tanks.
Yeah, because you didn't know about Blott's and you saw them at Derby, didn't you?
I saw them at Derby and had a chat with them.
Yeah.
And they went, yeah, we do all this in 20mm.
Yeah, because
I was already carrying half a ton of MDF on my back at the time. So
yeah, because you obviously made the decision that we were going to do
water tanker in 20mm
in Desert War in 20mm.
Yes,
because obviously
nobody else has anything
in that scale. So you go, excellent, I'll do it in this scale. Right.
I chose the scale because it fits my table perfectly.
Yes, and but interestingly enough, it is relatively difficult to find 20mm scenery, isn't it?
strangely, I didn't expect it to be difficult. And if I'd not walked across Blots at Derby, I wouldn't have known they did all their range.
Yeah, so they do it in 15s, 20, and...
They do 28, 15s and 28s,
Yeah.
and he was saying they're downscaling to 20s.
Oh, so they're downscaling their 28 down to 20s?
Yes.
Ah, cool. So we have some Adobe buildings.
They have some Adobe buildings. I picked 4 up.
Yeah.
Well, 3 buildings and a courtyard. Sets.
So something to drive around, basically.
So we can spend a few hours chasing each other around buildings in crappy tanks. Yeah.
Yes.
Which I still have to build and paint. But it gives me some. It gives me things to get these Valentine's builds.
You have an airbrush. That'll take about 10 minutes.
Yeah. The camouflage is easy. Just go whoa, 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 whoa. There it is.
Well, some would argue that depending on what camouflage you decide for the British.
It'll be the wrong camouflage because the British were very good at having the wrong camouflage.
I'll step away at that point.
And then I shall now put my tin hat on and go and sit in a bunker somewhere. And let's face it, the Germans made it up as they went along anyway.
Yeah, well, it's easy in the desert. It's just Dunkelgelb. It's like sand coloured.
It's brown.
Brown, yes. So
A brown with pale brown.
yeah. Of course, hang on. You've missed another purchase. I remembered a purchase that you've made that you've probably forgotten. Obviously, with us talking about water tanker and 20 mil.
Oh, sorry. Yes, I may have had an accident on the Lardy's website.
Indeed.
After having you, myself, and Mr. Luff having a chat about Chain of Command, I already own the rules in PDF form for Chain of Command anyway.
Yeah.
And we were talking about it.
Yes. And then you've decided that...
And then I went and bought the rest of what I don't own.
Yes. And then we're having this discussion because you want to do Chain of Command in 20 mil.
I might.
Despite the fact that...
You guys have
we've already got it in 15. Doing all everything. It's like, okay, so we're reinventing... we're into Michael Hobbs territory of reinventing the wheel in different scales here.
20's nice.
Yes, but I have it in 15.
We can play it at Dave's in 15.
Play it here in 15. I could... Okay, yeah. Or we could play it in 20. I mean... So, would you just...
At the moment, I'm going to stop the 20s with water tanker.
Well, I was just thinking...
the buildings are useful for other things.
I was just thinking, considering we've gone this far, I mean, would it be a case of you turn around and go, okay, let's start by doing Chain of Command Desert War in 20 mil?
We could do that, possibly.
And pick up some 20 mil plastics... Or, well, even 20 mil metals.
20 mil, there's plenty of 20 mil plastics.
20 mil plastics or 20 mil metals. Africa Corps. 8th Army. Have a bit of a play.
A few random Arabs. But the buildings.
Oh, okay.
The ones running from the things trying to kill them.
Right, okay. Yes. 20 mil. Chain of Command. Okay. Right.
Well... why not? I mean...
Why not? Okay, fair enough. Anyway, but the main thing...
I had actually forgotten that.
Yes, I'd noticed, yeah. The main thing is...
And I may also have bought something else while I was on the Lardy's site as well.
Oh, really?
Well, I might have bought the rules for ducks as well.
Oh, okay. Okay. Got your figures for ducks yet?
No. Oh, I might have.
What's the first? I might be able to interest you in something. Yeah. Yes, it consists on yourself much in the same way as Memoir 44 has, but we'll move swiftly on over that.
Using me as a storage depot.
That's good. You haven't decided quite if you're going to have it off me yet or not. Anyway, so I mean, the other thing I noticed over the over on the custom built painting table, ladies and gentlemen, We have some Vospers in various stages of painting.
Oh yes, there's 3 partially painted.
So, any danger of us actually getting that to the table in the near future?
I'm still annoyed with them at the moment, so.
Oh, okay.
I'm.
Do you have a C gaming mat?
I can't remember.
What?
There's probably something in the box that.
Oh, I see.
There'll be a paper.
Oh, do they have like a paper playmat in the box? Yeah, sure, that's not big enough.
But the Vospers, I was happy. I was puttering along until I bought my other fleets.
Oh, yes.
And then I lost it a little bit with Warlord at the moment, so I've got to be. They may sit a while now until I get back in the mood.
Oh, right, so because Warlord naffed you off with what they've done, the other stuff is like harumph. Right, okay.
Yeah, basically.
Okay.
I have that sort of.
I
And plus, I'm finding the ships quite tricky to paint.
Yeah.
They look simple. I should have probably airbrushed them, to be fair.
Right.
But no, I'm not good at painting big blocks of colour. Sorry,
Okay.
big blocks of grey.
Yeah. All right. So it's more of a case of. So it would have been easier if you'd have like airbrushed and then masked or
Masked and airbrushed would have been easier.
Yeah.
But
Some would actually argue the fact that, well, considering all the airbrush kit you've got, why on earth would you do it any other way? And then
I was sat at my table and there are a few brushes sitting at the back of the painting station that just fell into my hand along with the grey paints.
Okay, I'll step away from that one then.
To do the airbrush, I have to set up on this table
Yeah, fair enough.
because you can't. The painted table's just not big enough to airbrush on. I can't set up my screens properly. Remember, my screens are an old box
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, cool.
to stop catch the oversprays.
The odd large-sized cardboard box. I wonder how on earth you got one of those.
I don't know. I forever seem to be taking cardboard to the tip for some reason.
Actually, while we're on hobby, actually, this should have been on Confessions. We have to congratulate Mr. Hobbs. Michael, I know you're listening. And yes, it has been spotted.
We did spot.
Yes, congratulations that you have, in your words, done a Hickman.
Well, I was quite impressed.
Yes, started buying your card sleeves by the outer as opposed to by the pack.
Yes.
As I gaze above you, Dave, and see the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, I'm assuming that they're not all full, but there are 7.
There are 7 up there, and there have been more. Some have been thrown over the years. I think overall I've probably sleeved about 4,000 cards.
Ouch! I must admit, and this is your fault. This is your fault.
I'm perfectly innocent. Nothing's ever my fault.
When I started sleeving my Lord of the Rings card game stuff, and I bought a card sleeve offer off, I can't remember if it was eBay or Amazon.
You bought some cheap shit cards.
It wasn't the fact it was...
sleeves, should I say.
No, well, I mean, actually, they were... No, I mean, it was Ultra Pros, but the problem is they are the standard Ultra Pros, which are slightly too big because I think because the Arkham Horror are the same as Lord of the Rings, aren't they? Greens or are they silvers?
They're silvers.
They're silvers. Yeah. So the bottom line is that all my card sleeves are the wrong size. So I'm actually at the point where I'm thinking I'm going to have to re-sleeve all the.
Which has just reminded me, I've got the last expansion from Arkham Horror to buy and all the packs.
Oh right, okay.
And then the new one they've just announced.
Yes.
Because I've not bought the last one yet because the previous one I have yet to sleeve.
Ah, right, okay.
And work out how I'm going to store it all.
Yeah, it's interesting actually. I mean, I've not seen it yet. But I know because they had. I know this. Yeah. Anyway, they had a. They just had basically a Lord of the Rings card game tournament event, big tournament event on over the long weekend.
Okay.
And they had the current head of development on for Lord of the Rings, and essentially he turned around and said that game's going on hiatus, which, to be honest, is unsurprising considering the sheer amount of kit he's got out for it.
I thought that must have been coming close to end of life by now.
I'd have thought so too, and especially when they suddenly turn around and they announce this new Marvel Heroes game, which from a kind of, if you look at the slots of how it fits in. I mean, to be honest, Arkham Horror is similar style game in the fact of it is a 2-player cooperative.
2-player cooperative get yourself killed game.
Yeah.
Because it's a proper Arkham game.
Yeah. And we've already played it.
I know. And I wouldn't have even bought it hadn't it been for my Welsh friend going, "Here, look at this. Look how nice this is."
Hang on, so you bought it so you could buy the storage box?
No.
Oh, okay.
I bought the game because Mike had it with him one of the times we went down to Cardiff.
Oh, the original card game?
Yes.
Yes. Oh, I see. And then you're going to come from there? Right,
Yeah.
right, okay.
And then my OCD struck and I went, "Gotta have it." Oh.
Gotta buy it all? Gotta buy it all, of course.
Yes, I would have made a wonderful Pokemon collector.
Pokemon being the one computer game you don't really play much.
I have never played.
It's a Japanese game that you haven't played. Good grief! Don't look at me like that. You haven't even played it for 2 hours.
Might have done.
Sorry, that's an in-joke.
That's an in-joke.
Yes, Dave has hundreds.
Yes.
Hundreds of Japanese RPG computer games that you've played for 2 hours.
Mostly.
Anyway, that's just... We digress.
Yes, sidetracking here.
Indeed. So what we'll do, we'll take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll on to the main feature of the show, which will be... we'll introduce that in the next bit.
The Meeples and Miniatures podcast is proud to be sponsored by Firestorm Games. Whether you need wargames rules, miniatures, paints, hobby accessories, scenery, board games, card games, all your role-playing needs, and even toys and collectibles, Firestorm Games is your store of choice. Check them out at www.firestormgames.co.uk or at their stores located in Cardiff, Newport and Swindon. Don't forget, if you use the code MEEPLELEAF, that's MEEPLELEAF, all lowercase, you will get an extra discount on your order. Firestorm Games, for all your hobby goodness.
Okay, so we're into the main meat of the show, which is our aforementioned Snog, Marry, Avoid. And now, yes, as I said, I have no knowledge of this particular.
I still don't believe you.
Yeah, okay. However, it kind of fits in with the fact that what I was given at UK Games Expo, I was given 4 board games to review. Okay. Red Alert, which we did a couple of shows ago, which I've subsequently bought some expansions for. And then we were given, I was given 3 other games. Blood Ravens.
Was it Blood Ravens, Battle Ravens?
I keep calling it Blood Ravens because of
Blood
Rage and yes. Thank you, Mr. Hickman. I knew I had you here for a reason. Right, yeah. So Battle Ravens. Then we have Milito, which is a card game, and then we have Quartermaster General: The Cold War. So 3 quite different games, and since they're all from PSC, I thought, what an opportunity to group them all together, give a quick overview of each game, and share our thoughts, especially since now you played. We both played all 3. Indeed we have. So we'll do it in order. So we'll do Snog, Marry, Avoid. Okay, and yes, you know where we're aiming at this. Okay, so when I say Snog, what do I mean? I mean, okay, there's a game that you'll want to, that it may be a case of you'll pick it up from time to time. And I'm not going to go too far into this simile because, we'll get far too into trouble. Anyway, so a game that you might want to pick up from time to time and give it a go, that's actually a half decent game. So we'll start with that one. And we actually played it on Monday night, a couple of nights ago. Well, this is a game called Milito by Martin Wallace. And it's actually a re-implementation. I know because I asked him. I asked Will, because as soon as I saw it, I thought, hang on a second, isn't this the same as something else? And on Board Game Geeky, it says the same. So, you may remember back in the day. Do you remember an ancient set of rules called Field of Glory that Osprey did?
No.
Okay. Basically, it was for some it was a sequel to DBM, and Osprey were behind it, and they did huge books, set of books and various other bits and pieces. Anyway, off the back of that, Martin Wallace designed a card game called Field of Glory, the card game. Milito re-implements it, but basically streamlines it. So the idea behind the game it's a game of ancient warfare. Okay. So you each play, funnily enough, an ancient army. There are 6 decks, which are, remind me if I'm wrong. Right. So we have Republican Romans.
Yes.
Carthaginians. Ancient Brits,
Imperial Romans,
Persians, Macedonians. That's Alexandrian Macedonians. Yes. So yeah, it's the Alexander's invasion of Persia. So we have 6 set armies. Okay. Which is one thing apparently where it differs from Field of Glory, because apparently Field of Glory used to have drafting. But anyway, so you got a set army. The game board takes place on it's an abstract game. You have 5 terrain cards laid out in front of you. There are a choice of 9 different cards. 6 are plains, and then there's a wood, a hill, and a piece of rough ground, and they each give special abilities. We'll come on to hills in a minute. Yeah, don't look at me smiling like that, Mr. Hickman.
I couldn't possibly comment.
Well, I'm sure you will.
Well, I might do, but I'll wait till you get to that bit.
Okay. So, you have a relatively abstract board. It's not a board; it's just a table layout. And the idea is that you, during your turn, you deploy your forces into particular terrain areas. Those forces can be troops can be supported. So you can have things like, for example, you can have light troops supporting heavier troops. some troops have a cost to deploy, and you pay that in cards. It's normally the heavier troops. They may cost you to. I'm getting ahead of myself here. You see,
You haven't even described the layout yet.
Yeah, well, it's fine. It's yeah. Well, okay.
There's a central area with the 5.
Central area with 5 cards, and then potentially you can deploy troops up in up to 2 ranks.
2 ranks.
Yes.
That's
Fine. Thank you. And you have a hand of 9 cards
correct.
to start. You replenish your hand at the end of the turn, but you only replenish by 3 cards. So there is a potential where you can potentially start living hand to mouth, which can be a bit awkward, as we discovered. Yes, some units cost you cards from your hand to deploy. As well as your unit cards, you have generals in your hand. You have 8 generals in your hand. Generals will give you... generally, playing a general will mean that you can play multiple cards from a general.
But the game actually calls them leaders. But...
leaders, yes. So it will mean that, for example, a leader will enable you to pay for 2 cards that you place. Or pay 2 card points. So, for example... Some units cost you cards to lay on flanks.
Yes. A lot of them seem to have a cost to lay and an extra cost if you wish to lay them on the flank.
Yeah. Essentially what you'll find is that light troops and cavalry units tend to be free.
Yeah, the supporting troops tend to be free.
Yeah, but once you start to get into medium and heavy troops... they get more expensive, and then if you want to deploy them on the flanks, even more expensive. Right. So the anatomy of a card, essentially there are 3 stats. There is a movement, there is an attack value, and a defense value. There's then potentially a cost, and then there's also an icon which will indicate whether you can attach that unit to something that is not the same as itself.
Yeah.
Which is normally associated again with light troops. Light troops, archers, that sort of things can be attached to other types of troops. And then simply the idea is that you start laying out on the table, and then you battle with your opponent. You perform a battle. You can only win territory by either winning it in combat or ending up in a situation where at the start of your turn you are occupying an area of the battlefield without anything opposing you.
Yeah. So if you have a column unopposed, that then becomes your...
Yeah.
And the win condition's really easy. It's at the start of your turn, have 3...
Yeah, have 3 out of the 5.
Yeah.
So, again, we played a couple of games of this on Monday night.
Yeah,
what do you think?
I enjoyed it. It's not overly complicated to play. It's a shortish game. It's about 45 minutes a game.
Yeah.
It's tactical.
It's surprisingly tactical, actually, isn't it?
It is. As I happened to win both the games with... One was just my opponent overextended himself slightly.
Well, yeah, and again, interestingly, well, okay, so it's really interesting the way this worked, and actually, I overextended myself early, but that was all down to. So, you want to try and occupy territory, and then I thought, you know what, I'm playing cards out, and because you were first player, so I was reacting to you, and I came out and thought, right, okay, I'll lay these 2 cards out, and I will attack one of your columns, because these areas of terrain are called columns, okay? And you won that particular combat, which is I was a little bit unexpected, shall we say? So that immediately put a spanner in my works, because I was thinking, oh, right, I'm going to have to make sure that I then deploy something against you, otherwise it comes to your turn next, you'll immediately control that area. The trouble is, the only cards in my hand cost me cards to deploy. The free stuff I'd already put out elsewhere. Stupidly of me. And so, yeah, in order to prevent Dave from taking an early lead, I subsequently overextended myself and was playing catch-up for the rest of the game.
It didn't quite work out for you.
Unsuccessfully.
But yeah, now the factions play like the faction you'd expect the factions to do. The types,
They're very different, aren't they?
they are very different. Having played Republican Rome the first time round,
Yeah.
in the second game I played the Persians.
Yes.
I went from having lots of medium infantry to having lots of horses.
Yes. Shed load of cavalry. Yeah. What do I do with it? What do I do with this lot?
And a lot of them were heavies, and it's like, they're expensive, I don't want to play those.
Yeah, funnily enough, Persian cataphracts. Who'd have thunk? Against Macedonian phalanxes.
Which you managed to set up 3 very nice...
Yeah, but then, and this is where tactical play comes into account. Then I, rather stupidly, because, yes, I lost the game due to a tactical mistake. Simply, rather than... Dave had deployed a unit of archers
On a hill.
supported by cavalry. And then there was a unit of cavalry on the opposite flank.
Yeah.
On rough ground, both unopposed. I could only play one card.
Well, you already had the one.
I only had the one card to play, which was slingers. And slingers have a bonus against cavalry. And I looked at cavalry rather than archers on a hill. And so I deployed against the cavalry and rather crazily let Dave get his archers and control the hill. Archers have a special rule in this game whereby if they get combat bonuses in both their own and adjacent columns if they happen to be on a hill that they control. It cost me the game because you actually managed to wipe out a phalanx column with them. Didn't you?
I had to sacrifice
heavy cavalry
to do it.
Yes.
But yes, they helped. Without them, I wouldn't have been able to clear that phalanx out of the way.
Yes. And then we ended up in a situation. We both controlled 2 areas. I controlled the middle with 2 phalanxes. You controlled the outside with archers and cavalry, and then ended up in a situation where Dave had, because he'd wiped out me other phalanx, he had this unit sat on the 3rd.
My spearman. I put my spearman.
Yeah. And came to my turn, and of course, at this point, I was drawing cards. I was hand to mouth, and I drew 3 leader cards. Didn't have a unit to deploy against him, so I couldn't deploy a unit in opposition. Came back to Dave's turn. He's deployed unopposed.
He's won.
Wins his 3rd terrain and wins the game. I was gutted, but. As we said, it kind of reflects what you're doing. It does what it says on the tin. It is ancient warfare in 45 minutes with some nice little flavour but it does mean that you have to think about it.
Oh yeah, you can't just randomly throw things down because you're going to lose badly.
Yes, as I discovered. Yes, so that is Milito. It's a pretty decent game. At this point, I really should be on the.
I think it was 7.4.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it's rated quite highly on Board Game Geek. £27.
That's not bad for.
It's not bad. I mean, that's probably. Yeah, I suppose. I kind of expected it to be about 25. So yeah, it's and I'm sure you might be in the situation of finding it with a discount, but yeah, it's not a bad little game.
Yeah, I agree. It's something you bring out every now and again for.
Yeah. Cool. So that's the kind of it's one of these kind of like filler games that people talk about, and say of course ideal as a travel game. You know, if you fancy a bit of ancient combat and as a travel game, it's because you don't need. I mean, you know, it's you don't need the box. It's basically 7 packs of cards. That's all you need. You need 7 packs of cards and an area that you can fit 5 playing cards across.
5 by 5.
5 by 5. Yeah. So it doesn't take up a huge amount of space. Small table. So that's Milito. Yeah, not bad game. Okay, then the marry. Okay, so what I'm thinking about marry, it's now this is something that requires a bit of a longer term commitment, but is actually a decent enough game that you'd want to give that commitment to. Stop looking at me with that tone of voice, Mr. Hickman. And again, we'll step away from anything further, but essentially, okay, so this is a longer game, but something that you can get your teeth into. And for that, I'm talking about Quartermaster General, the Cold War, which is now, it seems that PSC have got a bit of a relationship with Ian Brody.
Yeah.
Because they produced several of the Quartermaster General games now. We have...
They have 11 of them listed in here.
Yeah, so there's the original... Well, so the original Quartermaster General is a World War II game.
Yeah.
Then, so that's the original Quartermaster General, which is currently sold out on their website. You might be able to get it out. You might be able to get it elsewhere, but there are some others which are. There's the Quartermaster General 1914, which I think was the second, which was the second one they did. Then they did Quartermaster General the Cold War.
Which no, I didn't want to do that. I clicked the wrong thing there. Go back.
And finally, they've done Quartermaster General Victory or Death. Now, Quartermaster General Victory or Death is set in the ancient world. Cold War is obviously set in
the Cold War.
Cold War, and basically, it goes. It's basically 1945 to 1990, 1980.
Yeah, because the progress is tracked through blocks of 5
blocks
years.
of 5, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah, well, because I mean, the end of the Cold War is basically deemed as when the Berlin Wall came down, isn't it? Effectively.
Yeah,
Glasnost.
Basically,
Ish.
when Yeltsin decided that he was going to disassemble Russia.
Yes. So Cold War. It's the third in the series of games. Now, it's a board game. It says 3 to 6 players.
I wouldn't want to play it with anything other than the 3 players.
Yeah. It seems to me that basically they're stretching it a bit. It's designed as a 3-player game, but then you can break each faction into 2. So you can so
you can play half a faction.
You can play half a faction. What they've actually done is that factions cards have different colour fronts. It basically completely splits your cards up. So you can play as a team, but the opportunity to communicate between team members is limited.
Well, don't they say that you're not supposed to communicate?
No. So, yeah, it's weird.
I can't see it working well beyond the 3-player.
Yeah, I find that I immediately find that artificial as a so we can play up to 6. No, it's a 3-player game. Okay, so there are 3 factions. Now, when you say Cold War and board games, most people think of one game, which is Twilight Struggle, which is 2-player card game, which is brilliant, absolutely brilliant. However, the one downside with that game is that it usually takes 3 to 4 hours to play.
It's a short game then.
Short game, yes. Well, I'll put it this way: either Russia wins very quickly within the first 90 minutes,
okay,
or you can stave off the red tide, and hopefully the Western Bloc will win by the end of the game. But It's a 3 to 4 hour game. It's a absolute classic. And
Never played it, so
we must play it at some point because I'm sure. Well, I'm kind of certain you'd like it because it's got some really interesting mechanics in it. But the idea behind this, and indeed with all the Quartermaster General games, is that they turn around and go, okay, you can play an entire conflict. Like, for example, Quartermaster General, the standard game, you can play World War II in its entirety in 2 hours.
that's a quick World War II, that.
Indeed. But that's the aim of the game. It's to kind of give you the flavour of the conflict that you're doing within a couple of hours. So you have the Soviet bloc, the Western bloc, and then
The odds and ends.
everyone else, which basically boils down to China, India, and the other underlying nations. So these are little nations that pop up from time to time. Each faction has its own deck. Decks consist of certain different types of cards, other than cards that allow you to recruit armies or battle. There are three main types of cards, which are events, espionage, status cards.
Status cards. And they're not evenly split throughout the decks.
No, and you don't even have the same number of decks cards in each deck. So,
No.
for example, the Soviets have 73 cards, the West have 81, and the non-aligned only have 62.
Sorry, for non-aligned, read the whipping boys of the game.
Yes, Chinese, Indian, and a nationalist. It's listed as. The card decks are asymmetric, so they are made up completely differently. And so, for example, status cards,
Yep.
so event, espionage, and status cards each detail different world events that happened during the Cold War.
Correct.
And they give bonuses to whoever's played them. Now, event and espionage cards are one-offs; they just occur. But status cards are things that happen every turn. Because for example, if you form NATO, I believe that's a status card. At which point, because NATO is in place, that gives you a particular bonus for the rest of the game.
And if I remember correctly, the Soviets don't have status cards.
Soviets don't have status cards.
The West have a lot of status cards.
Yes.
And if the West player remembered to use them properly, he would have done a little better than he did.
Indeed, and again, the non-aligned faction has a lot of status cards. Soviet, interestingly, so the styles of play, the Soviets have lots of armies, as you might expect, and lots of espionage cards. So they're kind of now it's an area control. Well, I didn't. It's an area control game. The board is they're quite big areas. So, for example, you're in a situation. So when you say an area,
areas are countries.
I mean,
basically.
Africa's divided into two.
Yeah. All right, they split Africa.
You've
got sub-Saharan and
you have sub-Saharan, and then you have northern Africa. The Middle East is one area.
Yeah.
But then you have Turkey and Iran are different.
And then you have the Balkans and
yeah. So I mean, Europe's kind of split up into several areas. But for example, North America is you have North America, you have Canada, you have South America as a single country,
and you have Central America.
Yeah.
And Cuba.
And Cuba in the middle, because obviously
Cuba's important,
fairly important. So it's it's relatively large areas to control. So the Russians have lots of military with the odd bit of sea power. The West have a fair amount of military.
The West have a lot of sea power.
But you see, considering where you deploy, the idea with sea power Because you only get victory points for having land, but having sea power means that you start linking up territories.
But your armies have to have supply chains.
Yeah, this is what you get into. So it's quite nice in the fact of you have several areas, several countries on the board are deemed to be supply centres, and if you occupy that supply centre, that you can then trace supply chains whenever you deploy.
Yes.
You have to have a supply chain in order to deploy, and that's an uncontested supply chain. So, for example, if you end up in a situation where the West and Russia are contesting a region,
Which they do at the start of the game.
It means that because there's that contested region, you can't deploy beyond it. You can only deploy around it. There are cards during the game that allow you to deploy extra supply centres.
Which are basically mostly Russian.
Yeah, from what we've seen so far.
From what we've seen. We've only played once. So.
Yeah. Okay, so area control. It's quite limited in what you can do. I mean, as I say, the game is 19 turns in total.
And we didn't finish 19 turns.
We didn't finish, no. But I forgot one type of card. Silly of me, I know. Weapons of mass destruction.
Oh, the WMDs.
WMDs. Yeah, this game includes
nukes,
cruise missiles, chemical weapons. They're there, and there is the potential to be able to use them as well. Anyway, so how the game works, quite simply, each player plays in turn. You have 2 rounds and then you have a scoring round. Okay. On your turn, you can play. There are cards that say they are played in a certain phase. Okay. So at the start of the game, at the start of your turn, there is a start phase, and certain cards can be played. They're primarily status and espionage cards.
They tend to be the status cards, and these tell you to, in the begin phase, use this, you can do this.
Yeah.
I think then you go to the second phase, which is the espionage phase. I think the second was espionage?
No, air power.
No. Is air power second, espionage 4 then?
No.
Because it's 5 phases. Oh, have I totally forgotten this now?
Dave's looking at me. I've got the rulebook in front of me. Right, okay, yes. Okay, so there are 7 phases.
There are 7 phases, so I was close.
Yeah, yes. Okay. But, yeah, because where it's confusing is that you cannot play, unless it's an event card, you have to basically have a card prepared before you can play it. So you prepare a card in front of you, and you can play it on subsequent turns.
And that preparation is in your action phase.
Yes. Right. So at the beginning of the turn, any cards that you have prepared and can be played at the beginning of the turn, you can play. These are usually the status or event cards. Sorry, status or espionage cards. Then there's the air step. Now, you have limited amount of air power. Air power can be used to either support ground units or perform airstrikes.
Or support sea units.
Yes. Yeah, yes.
Air power is support.
It's a support. It basically stops your unit getting destroyed if it's attacked, because you take off the air unit instead. Then there's an action step. You can perform one action. That action is either prepare a card, play it out in front of you, or play a status, or play an event card, or you can build an army.
Yeah, if you have the build army, navy, or air
card. Well, it's actually air can be played in the air phase.
Yeah, sorry, but build army or navy, you can play that.
Yes, or battle is so you can actually perform a land battle. But the only way to perform a land battle is if you're already in a contested area. So you have to build into a contested area, and then on a subsequent turn, fight. So your interaction in some ways is quite limited. There's only a certain number of opportunities you get to play during your turn. The next step is you check to make sure that all your forces on the board have a supply chain, and anything that has its supply chain broken for any reason. So, for example, as a result of a lost battle, for example, I'll be moved from the board.
Back into your supply.
Back into your supply, yeah. You have a limited supply. Once that has been used, you can't use proxies or anything. You have a limited supply of units. You play them out on the board, and then if you want to use extra tanks and stuff, you've got to basically take them from elsewhere.
You may remove.
Yeah,
I think it was at any time, wasn't it? You can remove your armies or air power or anything from the board.
From the board, should you wish to use them elsewhere, basically. But once you have all your units out on the table, you've got to start wobbling pieces to pay Paul, basically. There's a discard step where you can start discarding cards from your hand. When you have now the interesting thing with this, you play through your deck once.
Yes.
You don't. Once you're out of cards, you don't reshuffle your discard deck and play through again. That's it.
I think I was the only one who used discard.
Yeah.
And that was because I had a handful of espionage and I needed to...
Yeah. Yes. So basically, you can discard cards because obviously you have a hand limit of 7 cards. You draw up to that hand limit at the end of each turn. You could draw cards that you either don't or can't use. So at some point, you've got to be able to discard at least one. So you can do that.
I believe it only allows you to discard a single card.
Yes, it's only a single card. Then there's an espionage step, which basically, that's where it prepares you. You can prepare your espionage cards. But interestingly, what you do, you see now your status cards are face up. So so once they're played, and your WMDs are face up. Once they are up, other people can look at them and see what you've got, where you are. It's quite interesting because especially with your nukes and stuff, there is a certain amount of intimidation factor in the fact that hang on a second, that country's got he's developed missiles.
The fact that there's a cost to your victory points to use them is
because if you start using these things, it costs you victory points to use them. And then there is but your espionage cards you play face down,
and they're brilliant, and I use them heavily.
You did.
Unfortunately, that's where the whipping boys comment came from.
Indeed,
because
a lot of them tended to hit me for some, not intentionally.
It was just the way the cards came out, and you just happened to take the area off of Dave at the time that I had the espionage card to take the area.
Indeed, yes. So the espionage cards you know about, your opponents don't, and you know what, and they give you the options of when you can play them. And again, it's all to do with world events. So things like espionage cards can include things like, for example,
Landing on the moon.
Landing on the moon.
I pulled that one.
Yeah. You have things like the rise of Castro in Cuba.
Yeah.
There's loads of different examples. I mean, there's the START Treaty, which I think you played on me.
I did actually play that on you, didn't I?
Yeah, which basically means that other players have to discard some WMDs.
In fact, I had a couple where I forced the pair of you to discard WMDs.
Yeah. So you got things like the formation of the PLO, for example, which can affect armies in the Middle East. You've got they all fall within different things, and I mean, but some of the Russian ones are, rather than world events, they're just, you can make you, they can give you game events to do. So, for example, the Russians have an espionage card called Preemptive Attack.
Yes.
Strange that. You can use it at the start of your turn, and you can immediately play a battle card.
Yeah, the Russians have a lot of place supply marker here.
Yeah, there were. Yeah, I mean, it's quite interesting. It is designed as an asymmetric game. The factions do play very differently. And the Russians are very much a case of large, expansive armies. And America is very much a case of status cards and various other bits and pieces to try. It's also the Western Bloc.
The Western Bloc, because the Western Bloc does include Western Europe.
Yes. So that's very much a case of
holding the Russians back.
Yeah, holding the and then essentially you've got China popping up and doing bits and pieces. You've got India popping up and doing bits and pieces, and then you've got all like the African states popping up, and then there's like South America popping up and down, and like war in Afghanistan, for example, is
an American carrier fleet in the Pacific.
A shocking indeed horror. Yes, yeah. So you've got all that's going on. In addition to this, there's this thing called the escalation table, which it would have been nice actually if they'd have thematically called it something like something. Yeah, so you are
Table of Doom or
DEFCON.
Yeah.
Anyway, the bottom line is that it gives you the status of your block. How antagonistic
even.
I almost said that word right. You are against the other two blocks. The higher the escalation value is, essentially, the easier it is to start
throwing nukes
and dropping weapons of mass destruction on other people, because you start losing less victory points, and also your escalations mean that actually there are game events that start getting triggered once you're at a certain escalation level. That again, it's all card driven. So, area control game, 3 players. Before I ask what you thought, there's one other thing. Okay, there's one other mechanic which I have to discuss, and I know we kind of discussed this a little bit anyway, but yeah, please throw your 2 pennies worth in. Victory condition is 19 turns, whoever's got the most victory points. However, they turn around and say, if at the end of any turn, one block is 20 or more victory points ahead of the person in last place, they automatically win the game. And there is
it doesn't quite say that, does it?
There is a catch-up mechanism which says, before you do that, it says, right, if the last player is 20 or more, it is more than 19 points behind the player in first, the player in second place has to start sacrificing victory points to give their victory points to the third player.
To bring them in
to within 20 points.
A very, very artificial way of extending the game. I actually really don't like that bit.
Agreed. I actually think also it's a very clunky and artificial way of dealing with the 3-player issue. And what I mean by that is this. In a 3-player game,
somebody gets picked on,
tends to get knocked out of the game, and then the other 2 people fight it out amongst themselves.
Yeah, which is normal 3-player.
Yes. What this game is doing, by a draconian game mechanic, is forcing the second and third player to gang up on the first player. because otherwise the second player gets penalised for the third player being too far behind. So it's kind of forcing you both to concentrate whoever's on the lead.
I really don't like that thing because of the way the factions play so differently. For example, you could have fallen a long way behind and caught up at the end.
Yes, it doesn't give that opportunity. It doesn't give that opportunity to arise because of this. Well, once you're more than 20 points in front,
and to be fair, most of our 3-player games end up being fairly close, generally anyway.
Yeah. So that I mean, okay. So with that in mind, what do you think?
The game itself is really, really good.
Yeah.
A couple of mechanics I might be tempted not to play.
Yeah.
And the catch-up one being...
Yeah, I mean, I personally think that actually...
And the win at 20 I'd probably scrap and just keep going.
Yeah. Don't play with the catch-up mechanic and just play the 19 turns. Because, I mean, okay, because it was a typical learning game, you spend an hour essentially learning the rules. And then the game takes longer anyway because you're kind of going, oh, hang on a second, how does this work again? However, I can certainly see that in future games, it'll probably take, a couple of hours. And also, it'll be quicker, especially if you keep playing the same factions, you'll get to know your deck. Because the one thing I did miss is that there is this opportunity at the start of your turn to search your deck for particular cards. You have to discard cards to do it, so it comes at a cost.
And it's only the build cards.
Yeah. But there is that point where you might be desperate to build something.
I couldn't possibly comment.
And you haven't got a card in your hand. Yeah, so yeah, there is this thing, obviously, there's a certain amount of hand management involved. There's a certain case of, and that will obviously affect how you play. That means that every game is going to be different.
And to be fair, we played 2/3 of the game.
Yeah.
And I've not even gone through a third of my deck.
No. And we were in a situation where Russia was out in front. You were not too far, but you were only about 5 points behind.
I was holding Russia back from going across Europe, but he built a really big force north-south.
North-south, yeah. So he'd occupied the Middle East. He'd occupied Africa, and I was in a poor third place. But it is interesting. I realised afterwards that strangely enough, I played my faction slightly wrong. The way the non-aligned faction tends to work is that early in the game it's very much about India and China, and then later on you start getting all the other factions. So wars in Africa, wars in the PLO in the Middle East, the Taliban in Afghanistan. These things start popping up. And it's very much a case of playing the correct timing with that faction. So it's probably the more difficult faction to play, but interestingly, anecdotally from some of the evidence of people talking about how they played the game, there's an awful lot of people who win with it, which you can see. But I think I'd just be happy to play it. I would just play it out to its finish.
Play it out to its finish. I'm used to looking at Mr. Luff 3 miles ahead of us anyway.
Yeah, we did kind of gift him the easy faction. It does seem that...
gave him the Russians.
Yeah, it does seem that the Russians are probably the easier faction to play. The more straightforward faction to play.
They're the fast-starting faction.
Which, to be fair, is exactly the same as they are in Twilight Struggle, which again, reflects history.
I misplayed the West a little bit. I didn't use the sea power as I should have done.
Yeah.
And I let Dave get somewhere I shouldn't have stopped him. But we were looking at mutually assured destruction in the middle if we went at each other.
Yeah, it is a thing that if you start interestingly, I mean, if it starts, there was a Soviet West face-off right across Europe, as you'd expect, and it just depends if you really want to go there or not. Depending how aggressive you want to play the game, and again it depends on what your cards are like. So the gameplay you can see immediately is going to be very different each time, simply because of the hands of cards you're playing. So yeah, it's an interesting game, isn't it?
It's like I say, really enjoyable to play. I think we're all going to be quite happy to put that on the table another time.
Yeah, and I think it's a game that will reward several plays, because you'll get to start to know your faction. But it's
and at that point we take the Russians off of Mr. Luff and
yes,
give him the non-aligned.
Give him the non-aligned to work out. Yeah, quite impressed with that one. So that's Quartermaster General, the Cold War. It's currently available on the PSC site.
£50.
Yeah, £50. It is also available, obviously, from other game stores, because it's generally available. But yeah, that was a decent game. Our only issues, as we've said, are the fact that it's a 3-player game. It's not a 6-player game. It's a 3-player game. Whether or not you play with the catch-up mechanics or not, some would argue, well, that's what's in the rules. But at the same time,
it will not get used again.
So artificial, it's untrue. That is my only major criticism of the game. So that is Quartermaster General, which leaves us with one game to review, and we're on to Avoid.
This could be quite a short review.
Potentially. Right. Now, do you remember there was a bit of a controversy on Twitter earlier this week when Mr. Hobbs tweeted his 6-word review of the beloved Princess Bride film,
for which I'm still not speaking to him properly about. He may be right on quite a lot of the points, but that's not the point.
No, indeed not. Indeed not. It's a goddamn fairy tale. What are you talking about plot holes for? For goodness sake, oh dear. Anyway. Yes, moving swiftly on from the Princess Bride. Yes. Yes,
and Toto.
I wasn't going to mention Toto, but again, you may be, yes. Yeah, we'll move on. Yeah, yes, I shall have words with Mr. Hobbs next time he's on the show. Let's just say about that. I may agree with him on the particular track, but even so, yeah.
Yeah, but why that track?
Move along.
All right, sorry. I'm just enjoying myself for a minute.
Indeed. We shall discuss this, perhaps, with Mr. Hobbs when he's back here to defend himself. Anyway.
Is that discussing with big heavy objects?
Indeed. Mike, we're coming to Cardiff soon. Be afraid.
Be very afraid.
So, the game we have left to review is Battle Ravens, designed by Dan Mersey, who is probably most famous for his miniature war games, the Rampant series, Lion Rampant, Dragon Rampant, and the other Osprey Brew books in the same ilk. And he produced this board game. The idea of the game is to, I'll use big air quotes, simulate Clash of Shield Wars in Dark Age. The game comes with 2 factions, the Vikings and the Anglo-Saxons.
Correct.
There are standees for the forces with artwork done by Peter Dennis.
Very nice.
Very nice. That was one thing we failed to mention with Milito. Actually, all the artwork on Milito is done by Peter Dennis. It's lovely.
Yeah.
It looks really the card artwork is fantastic, really nice. Anyway, so he's done these standees. Okay, so you have press out card standees which you put on plastic. Yeah,
Standee bases.
standee bases. Yes, thank you, David. And then, so you have 39 units. You have 18. Right, so there's Hearthguard and warriors. I'm struggling. I haven't bought the rulebook with me for this one, but anyway, essentially you have heavy and light infantry, or heavy and medium infantry on both sides, 18 of each, and then you have three either archers or slingers depending on your side. You have a relatively large, thick board.
Yes, very well produced board.
Very well produced board. Divided into 12 areas. It's a 6x2 board.
6x2.
6x2 board. Okay. You start the game by deploying each area with 3 heavy and 3 medium troops. Okay. So you're set up 2 shield walls opposite each other, and then you have your 3 slingers or archers in support. Why am I talking about troop types? These are counters. The heavies are worth 2, the mediums are worth 1, the archers and slingers are reroll counters.
Basically.
Yeah. Then you have what they call ravens. You have 20 of them each.
Pretty tokens.
Tokens, yes. The idea of the game is, at the start of the game, you decide who is the first player. That player plays first for the entirety of the game. It doesn't even differ between rounds. The entirety of the game. Then, they have a choice. So they it's effectively alternate activation. So, phase 1 is you decide where you place all your ravens, and you do so by placing between 0 and 9 of your ravens tokens in one area on your side of the board. Your opponent then does the same, and you carry on until you've both placed your 20 ravens. So this is deciding your actions, okay, and then you play it out. So for each of the tokens that you have placed in an area, it starts with the first player's choice. You have a choice of what you can do with each of those tokens. That token can either be used to defend, to attack, or perhaps to move troops. You can move troops horizontally from one area to another, perhaps to reinforce an area. And that's it. When you attack, you choose a number of tokens of your choice, between 1 and however many are there. And for each of those tokens, you roll a dice. You hit on a 4, 5 or 6. Your opponent then may use some of his tokens to roll defense dice. And they defend on a 5 or 6. So, roll to attack, roll to defend. The net number of hits are the number of casualties that you have inflicted, and you remove that number of points from your table. The one caveat within this is that if you only have units worth 2 points, or they've got 2 wounds on them, you have to inflict both wounds on that unit in order to remove it. So if you only have units that have 2 wounds in an area, you have to, and you only score 1 wound, that unit isn't, it doesn't cause any damage. And that's it. So what you do is you each play out using all your tokens, and you either attack, choose to use some of your tokens to defend when you're attacked, and it plays out until all the
tokens are gone.
All the tokens are gone. And what you have to do is, if during an attack, after an attack, you have removed all the units from opposite you, you then move forward and occupy that space. Once you have taken 3 spaces, you win the game. So we started playing this. So first off, we came out and we assembled everything. Okay. This is possibly one of the most overproduced board games I've ever come across, in comparison to what you actually do in the game. So it's loads of trees to put together. Okay, fine.
All Sunday, set up, share about.
Right, we played 10 and a half.
I think we might have got to the start of the 3rd turn, and then
you went,
that's just garbage.
What did you say? Can you remember?
I think it was, where's the game?
Where's the game? Yeah. And this is the problem we have. Immediately, all you are doing is rolling dice.
And now some people could say that wargaming is generally about rolling dice, but...
Yeah, but generally you have more choice on what you're doing, or at least more tactical options, or something. This just seems to be the case of... Right, so, okay, there is the advanced version
Oh,
of
it
the game.
introduces some cards.
Introduces cards. Each faction, there are factions in this game. And there are even extra factions that you can purchase. There are, I think, Normans and Scots. They have 10 cards. However, you're only allowed to use 5 of them in the game, because you may want to have both factions. You have the same faction playing each other, in which case you have to divvy out the 10 cards between.
Forgotten about that.
So they've only produced a faction with 10 cards, but you can only use 5 of them, so you can play one faction against the other. Talk about a cheap ass way of doing something. At least if you're doing factions and the cards add some form of asymmetry to the game, just say, if you're going to use the cards, you have asymmetric. One person has to play Vikings, one person has to play Saxons.
Yeah, so we reset after the first 2 rounds of the first time, put the cards in play to see if it made a difference.
Now, the cards are faction specific. Essentially, they give you slight bonuses. If you're Vikings, they tend to give you bonuses to attack. If you're Saxons, they give you bonuses to defend. Strangely enough. Did it improve vastly?
Did we actually complete the second game? I can't remember.
I don't know if we did.
Because I decided that the only tactic to work on that one was throw all 9 ravens on a column.
One area. Yeah.
You throw, set up 9s and pick 1, put 9 on, and then force you to play.
Yes.
Roll against me.
Okay. So we did that on turn 1, and you scored, and you rolled particularly well.
I trashed you.
And I rolled particularly badly.
As normal.
And so I lost an area. So on turn 2, I decided I would do exactly the same. Except that when I rolled my 9 dice... Well, other than the fact that I could only manage to roll 2 hits out of 7 or 8 dice, I could only roll... Okay, so okay, this is a statistic nightmare, but 9 dice and only managed to roll 2 or 3 above 4. Okay, welcome to my world. And then you go and defend both of them,
and then attack with my turn and
yeah. And once you're behind in this game, it's because
you can't move through the enemy.
You can't move through the enemy.
You can't attack the enemy on your side.
You can't. So you then get to a point you can't redistribute your forces. But every time you lose an area, you lose ravens. So you have less dice to attack with. As soon as you start losing, you're hiding to nothing. But the problem with the game is that it's an exercise in dice rolling.
Yeah.
It's almost as bad as DBA. Yes, I did say that. I mean, we always used to joke about DBA is that in order to win DBA, you have to roll 6s, and the manoeuvring is almost. People will argue about that, but this. Not only is it a case of, or it's an exercise in rolling dice. My other question was, who's it aimed at? What's your audience? Because
it's overproduced for the audience I could see playing it.
Yeah, I mean it's massively overproduced. It's got all this kit in it. I mean, sorry, I've got to look at this game here on the Plastic Soldier Company site because I couldn't believe it. Dan Mersey's Battle Ravens. Hang on. Good grief, it's not even... the main game isn't on the first page. Right, the army packs themselves...
Really? There's that many?
Right. So the game retails at the moment is 25% off, but the game retails at 35 quid. £35. You can buy extra armies. It has Scottish, Welsh, and Norman armies for it, which are £10 a piece.
There's a deal. You can buy the whole lot at the moment for £65.
Yeah, save your money, guys. The only thing I can see for a gamer, for guys like us, I can't see this being, despite the fact it appears to be marketed at us, because look at all the nice shiny Peter Dennis stuff and all this, that, and the other. Why would we play it? Because, as we said, there isn't a game there, is there?
I can see kids playing it, but even they get bored with it quickly.
Once or twice. I mean, we all know that Shield War combat
is dull.
And it's a war of attrition.
You stand against each other and you poke through the gaps until somebody falls over, and you try and fill that gap before the other side pushes through.
So, if you wanted to make a game which reflects the attritional nature of Shield War combat, that partly the way it does it is by the fact of it is completely dull.
Yeah.
Well done, Mr. Mersey, because you managed to produce a game that is a dull dice fest that after 2 turns had us wanting just to throw the entire lot back in the box and not bother with it ever again.
It was an effort to play the second game.
I did have to force you.
Well, I was all for just walking out on that one.
You were. Let's play it with the cards. Let's just to see if it improves with the cards. And you gave me that look that you gave me. A bit like this now. Yeah. Crossed arms, looking at me over the top of his glasses. Really, really. I don't like giving negative reviews, but seriously, I really dislike trashing games. But I'm sorry. What on earth is this game doing in existence as anything other than a print and play game, or a small box game that you could pick up for a tenner.
Wooden blocks.
Wooden block, yeah.
In fact, it'd be fine. Wooden blocks.
Cardboard, wooden blocks.
Sat in a hotel on.
Yeah, it just about be all right. But as I say, it's
But yeah,
it's barely a game.
For me, it isn't a game. So I mean, it lost me after the first round.
After the first round, you were kind of going, "What on earth are we playing here?" Sorry, guys, but yeah, avoid like the plague. This is horrendous. And I don't say that about many games. I really do not see the point of Battle Ravens. Sorry, but there we have it. Okay, so there are 3 games from Plastic Soldier Company. Milito, decent game. It's filler game, decent game, lovely artwork. Quartermaster General, the Cold War.
Excellent game.
Battle Ravens.
Well, what can we say? 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
I can think of a song that does that. Mike, do you like meatloaf? Be careful what you say.
Yes, you're definitely outnumbered.
Yes, just because I have his physique. Yeah. Okay, yes, we'll step away from that one. Yeah, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. There we have it. Snog, Marry, Avoid, PSC Games. Hope you found that useful. We'll take a break, and when we come back, it's time to wrap this all together. So here we are at the end of the show. And what we normally do at the end of the show is we find out what Dave's been buying. Oh, we've done that.
You've done it.
Dave, you've trashed the end of my show.
That's a shame.
What can we do? All that remains to be said is thank you for having me in the Meeps game Meeps Gaming Central.
Thank you for inviting me on to do this.
Well, thanks for coming on. I mean, the worst thing that happens now is that we can stop recording and play a game, except for the fact you've got to go and watch rugby.
Yeah, I've only got an hour before I have to wander out to watch Leicester Tigers beat Northampton.
Oh, it's Northampton game. Oh, okay. Yeah. Ooh, right, yeah.
So the traffic will be horrendous.
Well, in that case, I better go home while I still can. Yeah. Yeah. Dave, thank you for joining me. I hope you've let's say thank you for. Well, first off, thank you for playing all these games. I've basically come along on 3 different occasions and inflicted games on you. At least 2 of them were all right.
Yeah, I'm always up for a good laugh.
Yeah. So hopefully you found the show useful. And just remember that we did have another game that we reviewed for PSC, which is Red Alert, on the other show,
which is absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, as I say, because you played that lot. You played that with me. So what did you think of Red Alert?
I love Red Alert. Yeah, my only negative point is too expensive.
Yeah, because it's a high price point, isn't it? Yeah.
It's a high price point. I don't actually like his ship models.
Yeah.
The game itself is great fun.
Agreed.
Even when some lucky git
on
his first attack of the evening wipes out my entire battleship squadron, and then on the second action nearly wipes out the heavy battleship squadron in one roll. At this point, thanks has to go out to Mr. Sean Randall, who advised me when we reviewed it that carriers are brilliant. Yeah, carriers are brilliant. Yes, all these nice little unassuming fighters flying around the board. Yeah, they can really put a hole in your day. No, Red Alert is a really good game. It is.
Enjoying that a lot, and we'll be playing more of that. So, yeah. So as you say, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. 1 other game that is brilliant. But there we are. So all that remains, now that we know what Dave has bought this month as well, is to say thank you for joining us. A shout out to the Welsh Wizard.
Yes, get well soon, Mike.
Indeed. Yes, hope you recover quickly. Because otherwise we'll be doing this all again in a couple of weeks.
No!
So, until next time, David, thank you very much.
And thank you.
And everyone, thank you for listening. Happy gaming. And we'll catch up with you, all being well, in a couple of weeks' time. Take care.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Meeples and Miniatures podcast. If you've enjoyed the show, why not share it with others by leaving us a review on iTunes? And if you have any comments or questions, you can always email the show. The address is info@meeplesandminiatures.co.uk. And you can also visit our webpage, where you'll find a complete episode archive, all the View from the Veranda podcasts, rules reviews, and our blog of hobby items and news, which is updated several times a week. This is also where you'll find the links to our presence on social media, and here you can follow us on Twitter or join our Facebook group. And finally, here you can also find details should you wish to support us by making a donation to the podcast. All this on the Meeples and Miniatures website, www.meeplesandminiatures.co.uk. The Meeples and Miniatures podcast is licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives 3.0 Unported license. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.